Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video, we're discussing Wake, written by Shelley Burr. It's on the long list for an award in the Indie Book Awards. I think it's the best debut novel from memory. This book is brilliant. I loved everything about it. It's marketed as crime noir. For me, it's more a mystery. And the mystery is just perfect. It's really spot on. And the characters, the setting, everything about this book just feels brilliant. It just feels like the author took so much care to write this story, and it just felt so well planned out, well plotted, and everything fits. Everything the characters do fits. There's no filler in this book. There's no room for it, and for a book that's set in the outback, in a small town in the outback, it feels bigger than that. It feels like so much happens in this story. The landscape is very barren. There's not many houses around, not much activity around, but the characters drive the story so well. It's so well written, and it just feels like you're in a bigger atmosphere, in a bigger setting than this outback, quite barren, fields everywhere, country town in Australia. This book is all about a cold case that happened about 19 years ago in the timeline for this story. Evelyn McCreary was abducted from her house, from a bedroom she shared with her twin sister. There was quite a big manhunt. The family is a prominent family in the area, and they were able to put up a reward as well. So because of that reward, it just put that case, that crime, in the media's eye for quite a long time. It got so much attention, more attention than other abductions in the area around the same time. But it couldn't help anybody find Evelyn, and 19 years later, she's still missing. Her twin sister still lives in the house. She went away to university, but she came back, and she lives in the house with her father. The mother had died a few years ago in the history of this book. The story opens up with Lane, who's a PI. Now, Lane used to be in this police academy. He was trying out for the Australian Federal Police. There were circumstances that led him to stop that, to leave, and he was looking after his younger sister. There's quite a few years between him and his sister, so he was raising her through her last years of high school. She's now university age, and he's travelling around now, and his specialty is solving cold cases. He's come to this small town. He wants to solve this cold case, and part of that reason is the reward. If he solves it, it's, I think, $1 million reward. So it's quite a big payday for him, and he really needs that money. It will help him support his sister and himself. The small town's called Nanine, and it's very small. There are big farms around, a lot of farms, and just a few buildings, and a lot of the shops and things are closed up. So there's not many people left in this small town. He has his own reasons, his own personal reasons for wanting to solve this case as well, but he's not telling anybody that yet, and we learn that as the story progresses. But it takes a while for us to learn that, and I enjoy that in this book. I enjoy the fact that these characters have other motives that we learn about later on. The motives aren't sinister always. Some of them are quite innocent, but as we learn more about each character, they make more sense to us. They feel more complete. They do feel, basically complete early on in the story. We get a true sense of who they are and why they're there in the book. But as you learn more about them, just those little corners of them are rounded out a little bit more, and they just feel that much more special to the reader. Anyway, Lane is in this small town called Nanine, and he's trying to get in touch with Mina, who's the surviving sister of the girl who disappeared all those years ago. Mina is suspicious of everybody. She is quite isolated on her property. That's another aspect of this book. This character, Mina, she lives in a huge property. It's a huge farm in a big house, so she's got all this room she can move in, but she stays very close to her house and spends a lot of time inside. And when she's outside, she just stays very close to that home, the family home. So for somebody who's living in this big outback setting, heaps of space, she's very isolated, she's very constricted in what she does, and she doesn't talk to a lot of people, she doesn't go to a lot of people, visit a lot of people, she doesn't go to the town very often, and in her life she wishes she could just do everything from home. Even though Mina does want that isolation in her life. She doesn't want to deal with people. She does feel lonely at times. And it's these different conflicting emotions in characters in this book that drive some of the story, some of the action, and sometimes cause conflict with the characters and cause other suspense and tension and suspicions going on in the story. But as this story unfolds, Lane is getting close to the truth, or we think he is. But what is the truth going to be? What happened to Evelyn? And why does he have these personal motivations in the story? We learn a lot about his history in this book as well, about his childhood, about where he was when Evelyn vanished 19 years ago, and how that impacts on his own investigations. We learn a lot about different people in the town as well. Some close to the McCreary family, some not. We learn secrets that have been hidden for years and decades. They're coming to light because of Lane. So Lane is not only stirring up a lot of trouble in the town, a lot of suspicions, and people unhappy with him, he's stirring up a lot of secrets as well. And when those secrets come to light, who will they affect? Will people be unhappy with him? Are people going to try to stop those secrets coming into the light? There are a lot of things going on in this book. It's so well written, and those secrets, they're very powerful. Some of them just make a huge impact in this story. But it's the characters mainly in this story that drive it. The characters feel so real. Everything about them feels real. We have characters who just, you think you can just reach out and touch them. That's how real they feel. And the setting in this book is described so well. You feel like you're there. You feel like you're experiencing everything that's happening in this story. You've got a ringside seat to all the different events occurring with all these characters. It's a really well-written book. It's quite a special book in my opinion. It deserves to be nominated for this award, and I'm so glad I read this. It just makes me want to read anything else this writer produces in the future, because I just think this author has quite a special grasp on many things. Setting, characters, plot, about unravelling a mystery slowly as the story unfolds, about not giving everything away at the start, making the reader work for it as characters learn different things in the book. It's a very special book in my opinion. Lane, who's the PI who wants to solve this cold case, he feels so real, and there are so many things that make him feel real. It's his attitude in some ways. He comes in early on in the book very cocky, sure of himself. He's sure he can solve this cold case very quickly and get the reward. As the story unfolds, he has doubts about himself, about getting to the truth, and it's those doubts that make him feel real. He realises things aren't always easy, but then when we start digging into his past, we learn more about his past and how that links to this case. He feels just a brilliant, perfect character because everything about him makes sense. Everything he is in this story, how it ties into his past, makes sense. He's very consistent. There are different things in this story for him as the story develops that are surprising, and they're very impactful. And towards the end, there are big moments that really shock you. This book is just so well written and constructed, but this character fits so well into the story. And that's a strength, I think, with this author, that the author's weaving these characters in and out of the story so effortlessly, and it makes the book such a pleasure to read. Mina, being the surviving sister of the girl who was abducted 19 years ago, she's a special character. You see her wanting things, wanting hope. You see her struggling with that. And it's hard to read this character. It's hard to read a character that's struggling for hope, wanting hope, but scared of it. Scared what hope will mean when the hope just fizzles out and disappears. You're just wondering, if that happens, what's it mean for this character? That's the strength of this character in the book. Even though parts of her aren't predictable, we know she wants to be isolated, we know she wants to hide away from the world for different reasons, but she doesn't like that isolation all the time. But it's those moments where she lets herself go and she wants to cling to some sort of hope in the story. And it's unpredictable, what will happen and how she'll react when certain things happen in the book. That's what makes the character special, and you engage with the character in those moments very much, and you want the best for this character. Well, I did anyway. I wanted Mina to get to the truth. I wanted Mina to find out what happened to her sister, not just for herself, but other characters in the story as well. But you just can't help but hope for Mina as well. You can't help that the hope she wants is the hope she'll get. And you just are right behind her through the whole story, wishing that that moment, that next bit of hope, is the one that's going to get her through to the truth. Alana is an interesting character in this story. Alana is a friend of Mina's, but she's a friend, it seems, by chance. Alana was friends with Mina's mother first, and Mina's mother and Alana met at a support group. After Mina's mother passed away, Mina and Alana became friends, so they're friends by circumstance more than anything. She's interesting because even though they're friends, there's some sort of undercurrent between them. And you just get a feeling that Alana is jealous of Mina at certain times in the book. Jealous because Mina's sister's abduction was huge news, and the disappearance of Alana's sister was overshadowed by that. So the media didn't pay attention to that very much, and the public forgot about it. But everybody remembers Evelyn's disappearance, and that undercurrent is the catalyst for certain things in the story that happen. And you get a sense that Alana's kind of hiding things in the book. She seems like she's not stable as a character. She seems sad, really, as a character in this story. And you can understand why. You know, having a sibling vanished all those years ago, you can understand that that would be traumatic, even when you're an adult, as you recall that happening. But you get the sense that it causes Alana to act in certain ways that may hurt people she considers to be her friends. So in this story, Alana is very complex. It makes her seem very real, because real people do make mistakes. And you get a sense that Alana is very well written, very well constructed, a real feeling character, and you can picture her. You think you can reach out and touch her, because that's the power of this story. Every character in this story, you feel like you can just reach out and touch. I think this book is just brilliant. Everything about this book just fits and works. The setting is so well written, you feel like you're there. You feel like you can see everything. You feel like you can touch the setting. The characters all feel so real. And that's because the characters aren't perfect. They're perfectly written, but they're not perfect characters. They're not perfect people. They've all got flaws. They all make mistakes. They've all got emotions that switch and turn on a hat, really. And because of that, they just feel so real. They just feel like you can touch them. The mystery is so well written, so well planned and thought out in this story. The plot is so well put together. Everything about this is just perfect. I rate it a 5 out of 5. I'm so glad I read this story. It really deserves the nomination for the award, and I'd be surprised if this didn't win. I've only read a couple of books in the long list that this is in, but this is one of the favourites so far, and I think it has a big chance of winning that award. On my channel, I do review quite a few mystery books. If you enjoy mysteries, check out my channel and subscribe. There's also a mystery playlist on my channel. It should be on your screen now.